Hello and welcome to Friday Live. I am Amanda Farmer and we are here on the Your Strata Property Facebook page, also heading out to LinkedIn and heading out to YouTube. Hello, everybody. How has your week in Strata been treating you? It has been warm weather where I am, maybe the same where you are too. I spent the day today at a school swimming carnival. So am particularly exhausted. Any parents who understand what that process is like, especially in the heat of summer. I'm cooling off. I've got the aircon on now. I'm cooling off, and it's great to be here with you all. I hope you are healthy and thriving. Fingers crossed for everybody at this time. I opened my week this week with a mediation session, fair trading mediation. We are still in New South Wales having our mediation sessions by phone through fair trading. So everybody on the phone, which I think we're kind of getting used to now. I feel like I'm getting used to it. I'd love to hear how you feel if you're a manager or an owner who has been attending mediations for about 2 years now in New South Wales by phone. Video, I think, would be great, but we seem to only be able to manage phone at this point in time. I'd be interested to know if anybody is aware when that might be changing. I think it is quite important in a mediation environment to have people around the table being able to see each other and being able to communicate through means other than voice, which is all we get on the phone. This session that I was involved in was a dispute about a clothesline. Yep, about a clothesline. I act for the owners accused of installing an unsightly clothesline. The case didn't resolve, and it may be that we're heading to the tribunal on that one. So all kinds of issues we get in Strata. I'm seeing lots of you here live with me. Feel free to say hello here in the comments, and I would love to acknowledge you. A special hello to anyone who's also catching the replay through any one of our platforms. Eric is here tuning in from LinkedIn, and Eric is saying, I'm sorry. I think, Eric, that might be an I'm sorry that, Amanda, you had to brave the school swimming carnival today. It's okay. I survived. We all survived. It's good that it's Friday and we're able to relax now. Good to have you here with us, Eric. Cheryl is here saying hi. Lovely to see you, Cheryl. And Debbie is here saying hi again from Brisbane. Good to see you, Debbie. Lots more highs coming on in. So great to see you guys always. David from Neutral Bay. How you doing, David? And Peter from Melbourne. Good to see you, Peter. Melissa is saying hi through LinkedIn. You're coming thick and fast now. Good to see you, Melissa. Gary's in Piermont. Cassandra, happy Friday. Cassandra's giving me a nice compliment. Amanda, you do such a great job. Thank you, Cassandra, and thank you for all of your support on LinkedIn. And I know that you share our content regularly. Thank you for that, and good to have you here supporting us. Henry is saying hi. I hope you hang the plaintiffs out to dry. Yes, nice pun, Henry. My clothesline case, yes. Maybe when I'm able to, when that one is done and dusted, I can give you some more detail on that one. Something else that I did last week was act as an independent chairperson at an annual general meeting for a large New South Wales building. Always an insight going to AGMs, particularly the big ones. And you can probably guess if I have been briefed, engaged to attend in the role as independent chair, there may be some conflict, maybe some dispute, some difficulties in the building. I attend many meetings, online, offline, more online these days than offline. Sometimes I'm in the chair role and sometimes I'm there as a proxy holder. Sometimes I'm there as a property owner, go to my own AGMs and general meetings as well. And I'm always fascinated in the different methods that are being employed by strata managers who are running meetings, especially online. And I have to say, comparing what I was seeing this time last year to what I'm seeing now, strata managers, chairs, I think is the correct term, You're getting really good. You're getting really good at this online stuff. And I know many of you are not necessarily using the bespoke software that helps you to run meetings and conduct electronic votes, but you're using Zoom and you're using Teams. And there's lots of features there, lots of features that I have not been aware exist. So ways to easily run polls if polls are demanded and to calculate those results. So hats off to you. Well done. We have all learned so much in these changing times, and I still, for one, am learning. Now, if you're coming in, feel free to say hello. I've gone through a few hellos already. I can see Deb there from Lake Macquarie. Sean is here saying hi. Good to see you guys. Today, I am going to take you briefly behind the scenes of our Pro member webinar that I hosted earlier this week. We're going to have a little sneaky look at part of that. I will also let you know about my next webinar, which is overwhelmingly for me coming up in less than 2 weeks. This is a webinar that I am hosting for the City of Canterbury Council, City of Canterbury Bankstown Council, I think we call them. It is not one of my usual council webinars about bylaws. Many of you who have been following along for a long time, listening to the podcast on Friday Live, attending webinars, will know that I do quite a few webinars throughout the year about bylaws, and often supported by our local councils throughout New South Wales to deliver that education to residents. I'm really excited to be delivering something different for you in a couple of weeks' time. The council, City of Canterbury Bankstown, and I have been working on something really exciting, and I'll give you some more information about that very soon. I am also interested in your thoughts on this week's podcast episode number 299. Towards the end of that episode, I spoke about a tribunal case, an appeal panel case here in New South Wales. And I think I only briefly touched on a couple of bylaws that were challenged in that case. Actually, it was one bylaw dealing with two different issues, short-term letting and also cost recovery. And I know some of you, I know how switched on you are, and I know some of you, your ears would have pricked up about that and thought, oh, Amanda's saying something important here about bylaws being found to be unenforceable because of certain clauses being included in them. So I thought it was only fair, only right to have a deeper chat about that today. And I'll take you over to have a look at some of the drafting that I use in my bylaws and the templates that we rely on inside our community. So we might do a bit of a test, have a look at the reasoning in the case and do a bit of a test against the bylaws that I'm using, and I know many of you are using, to see if we think they might stack up if they were challenged before the tribunal. And finally, I am going live again next week, next Wednesday, on somebody else's show. And I want you to have the opportunity to join me there to keep talking Strata on a Wednesday evening. So I will wrap up today with all the details of that event. Cassandra is letting me know that she really enjoyed the most recent podcast episode. Really helpful. Yeah, Rena opened that episode with a challenge about communicating with owners who sometimes don't understand the role of the strata manager and expect certain advice to be given, certain action to be taken that is just not within a strata manager's expertise. And I helped to hopefully give a framework there for how strata managers might communicate with and help owners to better understand their role, and especially the limits of their role, which are really important so that you don't expose yourselves as strata managers to unnecessary risk. So great episode 299 if you haven't checked it out yet. But first up, our Bulletproof Books and Records Pro webinar. This webinar happened. It's already happened. Went live on Wednesday this week. This was a new type of webinar that is offered to our Pro members as part of their membership benefits, and also all other members having the opportunity to join us at a heavily discounted price for them. And so many of you did join us, Pro members and our other members also, and I'm so thrilled that you enjoyed the webinar. I have heard from many of you. You've answered our survey, and it warms my heart to hear that you, or to see that you tick that box in the survey that says you are extremely satisfied. Sounds very formal. that's the option that I put on the survey. Maybe I can rethink that one. Extremely satisfied with the webinar, and a number of you telling me that it was great value. So good to hear. It's something new, different that I've put together. So I'm always interested to get feedback on anything new that we're doing. In the Bulletproof Books and Records webinar, I covered the 3 biggest mistakes that I see strata managers and secretaries making when it comes to record keeping for their owners corporation clients. We had a look at the pitfalls lurking in our strata legislation that make proper records management such a difficult task. And I walked you through a case study, a building, a client of mine for many, many years that had to pay over $10,000 in legal fees to resolve a dispute about records. And we worked through some key takeaways from that experience. And we dived deep into your questions, and we looked at privilege, solicitor client privilege, and what happens with those documents, and private email communications between committee members. What are they, and can they be withheld from inspection? So on our pro webinars, lots of vowels there, we do go deep. We go deeper than we would otherwise go on other webinars that you may have been part of. We look closely at the legal issues. We certainly did that on Wednesday. I actually took everyone right inside my client work and showed you actual advice that I've received from barristers about books and records, thousands of dollars worth of advice that I refer back to again and again to help me answer questions, solve problems for clients inside my legal practice. So we structured the webinar, or I structured the webinar around this case study of this troubled building that was facing many requests from one particular owner, requests for access to records, repeated requests, and each time a request was made and an inspection was facilitated, there was something wrong with the records. There was something missing from the records, and indeed there were lawyers' letters going back and forth. And I'll just share for you my screen here, if I can, to just give you a taste of the direction that we went in with the Bulletproof Books and Records Pro webinar. Hopefully I'm going to hit the right buttons here. See how we go. I will just mute myself so we don't get an echo. Oh goodness, you've got 2 of me on the screen now. There you go. Let's start here with a snapshot from our barrister's advice. This is what he was briefed to do. He was asked to advise on the limits, if there are any, of the owner's corporation's obligations in response to such requests, these repeated requests for access to records, and any strategies that the owner's corporation may take to protect itself from litigation founded on an allegation that it has not complied with its obligations. So a nice broad brief, and I really do think that so many of you will benefit from hearing what the advice was in answer to this brief. Now I can see there you go. And so many of you did hear what the advice was. We went through a series of 7 questions that were asked by me of our barrister, and we went through the answers to those questions. That is the way. That is how we roll in pro webinars. There will be more pro webinars coming up throughout the year, and I will be sure, of course, to be letting everybody know about the opportunity to attend those. And I know that our pro members in particular are looking forward to their exclusive webinars on business and marketing skills coming up in 2022. So thank you. I'm seeing some names here live today who were with us at the Pro webinar. Good to have you here with us again today. Lots going on in the Strata world. Can never get enough, hey? Never get enough. Next webinar. Next webinar is for the City of Canterbury Bankstown Council. It is on a Wednesday, the 22nd of February. This is a free webinar. This webinar comes out of a project that I have been working on for a few months now with the council. They've got some really great, innovative people working there at City of Canterbury Bankstown, coming up with great ideas to assist apartment residents, owners, committees, strata managers to improve their communities. And it's often the case that a council or an institution similar to a council will come to me and say, Amanda, we've got this great idea to reach out to our apartment residents and we want to deliver this resource or this education or help them solve this problem, but we don't quite know how to engage them, how to find them, and how to get residents understanding that we're here and that we're here to help. So that's definitely where I come in and help connect the dots there. This webinar is all about adding value to your strata common property. So how can we add value to our common property? Maybe it's unused or unloved common property. Maybe you think you've got some valuable space there that your residents can enjoy, or maybe that you can sell and make some money to fund some repairs that you have coming up. Maybe you've got a rundown bin room or bin bay. I know this is a big problem in some local council areas, older buildings with bin bays that actually don't even fit the larger trolley bins that we have these days. How do we upgrade that area? How do we successfully submit a development application to council? So this is really where the focus of Canterbury Bankstown's work is at the moment, trying to help communities to understand the steps involved in submitting a development application to council, because it's a little bit more complicated. There's a couple more steps involved for an owner's corporation than there is if you are a single resident owner submitting a development application. And what council was hearing is that some residents are put off by that. It's all too hard. Yes, we have the money, or we think we can raise the money to do this improvement, but we've got to get a DA. Don't we have to have a meeting? Don't we have to pass motions? Who has to sign it? Who has to support it? How does it all work? So that is what we are going through on the webinar. And this is also the place where we are launching City of Canterbury Bankstown's new Strata DA guide. So those attending the webinar are going to get access to the Strata DA guide, which has that step-by-step. And together with council, I have drafted the content in that guide. I have drafted template motions that you will need to pass at meetings, both committee level and general meeting level, to assist you to put your development proposal, development of the common property, to owners in general meeting and successfully get that passed and get on with that job of improving and adding value to your common property. So that is a webinar that if all of that is sounding exciting to you, you want to jump in on that free webinar Tuesday, the 22nd of February. Here's the interesting thing. We are actually kicking off at 7:30 p.m. So it's an evening webinar, not my usual lunchtime, midday webinar, an evening webinar. I'm really interested to see how many of you that time slot suits, and if that's something that we get great show up for, lots of people liking that later time slot, then might be something that I move to do more of. 7:30 p.m. That's Eastern Daylight Time. Still daylight savings in February. Yes, it is. 7:30 p.m. and we'll run for an hour to an hour and a half. Okay, so we're hopeful that 7:30 p.m. kids are fed. Maybe you've had some dinner, washed up. If you're really diligent and ready to sit down and learn how to add value to your common property. So we do have, I'm pretty sure, we have a link to check out that webinar, to register for that webinar through City of Canterbury Bankstown's Eventbrite page. So Rochelle will pop the link into the comments here for us. Go and register, completely free. Join us on the evening of Tuesday, the 22nd of February. I will be there. I will see you there. Alrighty, this week's podcast episode number 299. Yes, nearly 300. Episode 300 coming for you. Next week, we definitely have something special planned. Some of you know, some of you have been involved in the Little Something Special. Been putting some bits and pieces together for you to prepare for next week's episode 300. Super exciting. But let's take a step back. This week's episode 299, my chat with Rena. We covered, or I mentioned towards the end of our chat, a case. And we didn't have the link to the case in the notes earlier. So if you headed over to the podcast page and didn't see it, I apologize for that. But we do have the link here for you today. The case is the owners of Strata Plan number 916 84 and Liu. There are actually 2 strata buildings and side by side and 2 strata plan numbers, but that's the leading number in the head note, 91684 and Liu. Go and check that out, have a read. It's important because the appeal panel of the tribunal upholds an earlier decision of NCAT, of the single member of the tribunal below, upholds a decision to invalidate a bylaw. It is a bylaw that is about short-term letting, and it's a bylaw that had 2 relevant clauses in it. One clause allowed the owners corporation to deactivate security devices or fobs, swipe cards, access keys in the event an owner was breaching the provisions of the short-term letting bylaw. You could cut off their access and presumably the access of any occupier that they have involved in their apartment, in their short-term letting operation, cut off their access to their apartment. Just one moment. I thought it was a child. It's a dog. I have my little puppy who has somehow pushed his way into the room. He can unlock doors. He can unlock doors. That's Barnaby. I won't show you Barnaby today. He's doing something that is not video worthy. Okay, so we don't need to see Barnaby. We might have more visitors soon. So this bylaw had a clause in it that allowed the owners corporation to deactivate devices if an owner was in breach of the bylaw. It had another clause in it that said if there were costs incurred by the owners corporation in dealing with bylaw breaches. I'm a little bit vague because the decision unfortunately doesn't actually have the clauses, the terms of the clauses printed in it, so a little bit tricky. But recovering the costs of the owners corporation, the bylaw was empowering the owners corporation to recover those costs from the owner. Each of those clauses was found to be beyond power. Harsh, unconscionable, or oppressive. That was the basis of the challenge. Now I've got 2. Now I've got 2 dogs, and they're just having a moment. So I think I might be rescued. I might be rescued shortly. So harsh, unconscionable, or oppressive. Bylaws that are harsh, unconscionable, or oppressive are of no force and effect. So the appeal panel found that the tribunal made the correct decision, said these bylaws are of no force and effect. So this building now does not have a short-term letting bylaw in place because the whole bylaw has been invalidated. Anybody who's just tuning in, I'm just having, it's doggy daycare over here. There we go. I've been saved. Dogs have left the room. And the key point in this case that I wanted to get across that I think we all should feel a little bit nervous about is that the entire bylaw was thrown out instead of just those 2 clauses that went too far, that were overreaching, the tribunal found. So the whole bylaw was thrown out, even though the owners corporation, represented by lawyers, strata lawyers, even though the owners corporation argued that those clauses should just be severed. Those clauses should be taken out of the bylaw and the rest of the bylaw should stand. That is concerning. If you have a bylaw that may have clauses in it that are unenforceable, your bylaw could be at risk of falling over completely on the authority of this decision. The appeal panel said that severing the clauses from the bylaw, it was not comfortable to do because that's not the bylaw that the owners voted for at their general meeting. It would be a different bylaw. The lawyers certainly argued for principles of contract law and contractual interpretation to be applied, where we do sever clauses from contracts and allow the rest of the contract to stand, but the tribunal did not accept that. So here's the thing. I want you to have a close look at the case, and Rochelle will just pop the link in to the case in our comments here. I'm actually going to share with you. I've got a copy of it here in front of me. I will share my screen with you. Which way will we do this? I will share. I think I'll share no, that's dangerous. I won't do that. I'll end up sharing the wrong thing. I will share here the case. So this is the case as seen on Ostley. And I would love for anyone who is involved in this case, whether as owners or as counsel or solicitors. We can see strata lawyers there representing each party, to get in touch and perhaps fill in some of these blanks here about what these bylaws actually said. I'm going to make you all very seasick and scroll down towards the end of our case, towards the end of these reasons here. Nope, that's not going to work. Sorry, guys, I thought I had a section that was highlighted there. What I will do instead is take you over to my template, short-term letting and cost recovery bylaws. And you can let me know what you think of these. I have, as all lawyers should, and probably committees should, after reading this case, had a look at my bylaws and how they read, and assessed whether I think they would stand up against this particular reasoning. I am not having much luck. I am not having much luck with my tech today because I can't find what I wanted to show you. That's okay. We'll get it going. Here it is. Thank you for bearing with me. Okay, here we are. Short-term accommodation. This is my template, and this is a template that is available free to members inside our communities. My template, prohibition of short-term rental accommodation, template bylaw, updated to incorporate changes to our legislation that took place in April 2020. That's when we had a new section in our act that said that you can ban short-term letting for where the lot is not the principal place of residence of the host. So this bylaw, like the one in the Liu case, incorporated the provisions of the new legislation. And remember, in Liu, talked about security keys, security devices, and you can see that I have a reference in my bylaw here to security devices. And scrolling down to our remedy, if a committee reasonably believes here in clause 6 that an owner is using, operating, directly or indirectly facilitating the use of a lot for short-term rental accommodation in breach of this bylaw, the owner's corporation via the committee or strata manager may do any number of things. These things listed here in clause 6: request evidence of compliance with the bylaw, exercise its legislative right to enforce the bylaw, enter upon any part of the lot to carry out an investigation, refuse to provide additional security keys to the owner, take all necessary steps to ensure the security of the property, which may include deactivating security keys. Alarm bells, alarm bells, alarm bells. I have that in my template bylaw. I don't know how the Liu bylaw in that case was drafted, but I certainly have that in my bylaw. And I'm questioning whether inserting our discretion here with the word may and also referring to all necessary steps, which may include deactivation, would be enough to save this bylaw from being found to be invalid on the basis it is harsh, unconscionable, or oppressive. So that is a template bylaw that I am definitely going to go back to review. The other clause in the bylaw in the Liu case that was challenged was about recovery of costs. Look at this. I have this clause in my template bylaw as well, where the owner's corporation has incurred costs or enforcement costs, and those are defined. Because of an owner's breach of the bylaw, the owner's corporation may recover those costs or enforcement costs, including charging those to the owner's lot account as if they were a contribution under the Act. Now, what I was attempting to find for you earlier towards the end of the decision was a comment from the appeal panel that commented on the drafting of this particular clause in the Liu case. And the drafting was a little bit different. And there was a suggestion that if the drafting had been this way, that you could recover your costs as if they were a contribution under the Act, then that clause of the bylaw might have been okay, characterizing the costs as if they were contributions. A little bit technical, but that is definitely worth looking at and reviewing the way that you draft your cost recovery clauses in your bylaws, like short-term accommodation or standalone enforcement costs or standalone cost recovery bylaws. So I just wanted to give you that quick tour to let you know that we as strata lawyers, I said this in my email today, the law is constantly changing and constantly challenging us, and things that we might think are um, you're able to regulate, um, able to empower yourselves to do when tested before the tribunal, and especially higher levels of the tribunal, the appeal panel, as we saw in this case. It's really important for us to be tuned into that and be on top of these cases. And when something like the Liu case comes out, testing a bylaw that we know we have in place, that we know we rely on in our template pack, that we're going back and reviewing the terms of those bylaws and encouraging our clients to do the same as well, because you don't want to be in that uncomfortable position of being before the tribunal, facing a challenge to a bylaw, and your opponent wheeling out an appeal panel case that says this exact bylaw was found to be of no force or effect by the appeal panel in the following case. We don't want to be surprised by that. So have a look at your short-term rental accommodation or short-term letting bylaws and your cost recovery clauses. I certainly will. Something really important that I wanted to add there is the value of a severance clause in your bylaws. Again, not something that I have here in these templates, but I certainly have a note to myself to add these in. A clause that says if any part of the bylaw is found to be invalid or unenforceable, of no force or effect, then that clause should be severed from the bylaw and not affect the operation of the rest of the bylaw. I think if the bylaw in the Liu case had that clause, then that could have been relied upon by the lawyers attempting to keep that bylaw in place for their client. Because it would have been clear the intention of the owners when they were reading that bylaw and approving that bylaw at a general meeting. They intended that if anything was wrong with a single part of it, that the whole thing would not fall over, that the offending clause could be severed. More highs coming in the comments here. I am just seeing some questions as well, which I will get to. Zlata, hello. Edward, hi. Hope your buildings didn't leak in the downpour today. So far, so good where I am, Edward. Gordon is saying, oh, hi from Jetty Strata. Nice to see you, Gordon. Happy Friday. Good afternoon, Sean. And jumping to questions, that was the first thing that jumped out to me, but I just wanted to acknowledge those hellos there. Sean, we have a case where the member has said we need to chase the tenant, not the owner, for damage to common property. Very interesting, Sean. Is this pursuant to a bylaw? What does your bylaw say about damage to the common property? And I think I looked this up for a member in my community a little while ago, and I noticed that the model bylaws have changed. The old model used to have a model bylaw about damage to common property. I don't know exactly what the wording was, but the new model that came in with the 2015 legislation just took that out altogether. So unless you have a specially crafted bespoke bylaw about damage to common property, yeah, you might find it hard to pursue an owner where the tenant has caused the damage to the common property. So let me know if, Sean, if you're trying to pursue through a bylaw or whether you're relying on the Act, because that could be tricky. Richard's asking me about the case name for this one. Yes, Rochelle, I haven't seen that link come in. Let me know in our chat if you need that. I will also read it out to you, Richard. The owners in Strata Plan number 91684 and Liu, Liu, link to come straight to Osley for you, Richard, so you can go and check that out. Always appreciate the thoughts of colleagues on these cases. I did wonder whether a differently constituted tribunal may have come to a different decision about that bylaw. But we can't pick them. Get what you get and you don't get upset. Okay. Now I've just closed my window, closed my proverbial window. Where are we? Here we are. We're right here. Next Wednesday night is where we are heading right now. Exciting. I will be live again, preferably without the intrusion of the pups and the technical difficulties. All fun. I have been invited to be a guest expert on the Australian Property Investors Facebook group. I think they actually refer to themselves as Oz Property Investors, AUS Property Investors. This is an online group of successful, experienced property investors who are in the market right now, who are buying properties, whether it's strata title, whether it's other properties. And the group helps others to find deals, negotiate on property investments, and just to get things done. They leverage each other's skills and knowledge to grow their own portfolios, and they share their dreams, their desires, their mistakes. I know all of this because I'm part of this group, and I read their Facebook updates regularly. There's an incredible bank of knowledge there in that Facebook group. Rookies are there, and those who are more experienced helping them out, sharing tips, strategies, principles, knowledge around the key components of property investing. Now, I often say my favorite clients are experienced, intelligent, successful property investors who have been around property for many, many years, but have never bought strata. And then they buy a strata property. And then they say, Amanda, what madness is this? What have I done? I don't understand it. I had no idea that this world of pain was what I was stepping into. Can you please help me? And I've said they're my favorite clients. And you probably don't want to be your lawyer's favorite client. So if you're an investor who doesn't know a lot about strata, I know it's not you here, our audience here today, but that is the reason why Oz Property Investors has seen the need to bring in strata experts such as myself to have a chat to their audience and try and avoid some of those pain points that property investors experience when they buy strata, body corporate, community title, into strata companies, nationwide group the Oz Property Investors are reaching. So I am going to be live with the boys over there on Wednesday, next Wednesday. What date is that, Rochelle? Rochelle will tell me. We'll pop into the comments here what date that is. Next Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Once again, 7:30 p.m. next Wednesday, live with the Oz Property Investors Facebook group. I will have a link for you, a direct link to our live chat where it's going to be that I'll share with you next week. For now, most of you are here on Facebook. You can check out the Oz Property Investors group, and I'm sure you'll be able to join the group, and then you'll be notified when we are going live next Wednesday night. So lots of questions to be answered there. We're going to be talking about renovation works, talking about buying off the plan, talking about dealing with difficult personalities that sometimes investors just want to get in and get it done, but unfortunately come a cropper on the personalities, different interests in a building where you have a proportion of investors and owner occupiers. I see some conflict arising often in those differences of opinion and those different interests and different personalities. So that's something that I will be talking about next Wednesday night. That's the 16th of February, says Rochelle. Thank you. It is Valentine's Day on Monday, so that's the 14th of February. Wednesday, the 16th of February. All righty. I think that's it from me today. It has been wonderful to see so many of you. I am always so impressed to see lots and lots of you here live with me on a Friday afternoon. More hellos coming on in. The third Sean. Oh, that's right. Sean is saying, Sean the third, hello. We do have 3 Seans here with us live, as we often do. You're all wonderful. It is so good to be joined by you. And Petra is here saying good afternoon. And Sean is saying he's late. Yes, I'm on my own today, Sean. So that is how we roll sometimes on a solo Friday live. Those are my updates for this week. Those are my stories to share. Sean's going to go and catch the replay, and I will look forward to seeing you all next time. See you live next week. See you live on a webinar in 2 weeks' time. Rest up, stay healthy, and see you in person maybe sometime soon. Bye-bye.